Hello, I'm Esther Githu-Yuwat. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. Millions of people displaced by Sudan's conflict face malnutrition, floods, and a withering economy. Egypt's Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry speaks to VOA's Peter Claude on the ongoing conflict in Sudan and efforts to restore peace. And a self-taught drone pilot in Lusaka, Zambia, is using scrap materials to build drones that fly and capture stunning aerial footage of his community. We'll have more on our tech report. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. The United Nations Health Agency says cholera and dengue outbreaks are gripping eastern Sudan, where thousands of people are sheltering in packed camps as fierce fighting between the country's military and a rival paramilitary force grinds on. The World Health Organization says more than 160 people are suspected of having cholera in Kadarif province. The fighting has forced millions of people from their homes, and many are struggling to survive. David Doyle has more.
Like millions of others, Fadwa Saeed Ahmed was uprooted after fighting broke out in Sudan's capital Khartoum between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces in mid-April. She and her family left Omdurman, a city that adjoins Khartoum, in June, heading to the coastal city, Port Sudan. The art teacher says life is more difficult now.
In Port Sudan, we suffer from lack of water. We have to buy drinking water and water for cooking, which is different. We have to pay for electricity. In Khartoum, we did not suffer from all this.
More than 5.25 million of Sudan's 49 million population have been displaced since the fighting erupted, according to UN figures. Most have not returned home. They face malnutrition and floods as they lodge in shelters beset by crumbling walls and scorpions. Survival depends on handouts and meagre aid relief, as the generosity of host communities is stretched increasingly thin. Ahmed's husband, Omar Khalil, says one continuing lifeline is remittances sent by Sudanese people living abroad.
This cannot last forever. A solution must be found.
The conflict has brought Sudan's stagnant economy to its knees. Prices for products have soared as the currency has tumbled. The country is now having to draw on its scant resources to support its internally displaced population. Meanwhile, international aid efforts remain severely underfunded. According to the United Nations, by mid-August, just 25% had been provided of the $2.6 billion required for this year.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. Now, for more on the situation in Sudan, I'm joined live via Skype from Boston, Massachusetts by Dr. Anmar Homeida, the Healthcare Programs Director with the Sudanese American Physicians Association. Dr. Homeida, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you so much, Esther. Very nice to meet you and talk to you more about the crisis that is currently happening in Sudan and to shed the light on what's going on. Right. And to increase advocacy on those agendas.
So, Doctor, given now the limited resources in Sudan's medical facilities and lack of funds, what can be done to contain the spread of these highly contagious diseases?
Unfortunately, what's currently happening in Sudan is quite interconnected. It's not only like it's a health thing rather than a bureaucratic emergency elements. The economic impact is one of it, and of course, gonna be directly linked with the food security and the nutrition impact, and of course the health impact. And those health emergencies that our people in Sudan are currently facing, unfortunately, directly linked with the lack of the governmental support to hold on the basic infrastructures in terms of providing adequate, and quality water sources, and of course, supporting the aspects of providing the basic and minimum preventive healthcare services that could guard against any spread of those outbreaks. But of course, due to the limited resources that all partners and humanitarian actors whom are currently working in Sudan are facing, and as you highlighted in your report, the funding gap is really huge. Up to, according to the last report from UN OCHA, up to only 31% of the Sudan humanitarian response plan has been actually secured. And this is gonna be directly linked to the best utilization of the available resources that we are currently have as partners, local actors, and of course community groups whom might support massively on such situation. As you know, the government lack the capacity right now to support like such a response for those protracted emergencies that the country is currently facing in different locations. So the solidarity on the ground is really important. The effective coordination between the international UN agencies and national actors, and of course with a strong contribution from the community actors, and with agendas is really needed to guard against any more spread on those outbreaks. In addition,
right, Dr. Homeida, what I hear from you is, of course, the crisis is there, the outbreaks, there's lack of, money for people to get food on the table. But this is all stemming out of the warring sides, the conflict between Hemeti and Al-Burhan. If you had a chance to speak to those two men, what would you say?
Honestly speaking, the aspects of this conflict, unfortunately, to be honest with you, affected me as a person, affected my family, affected anyone whom I'm currently know, directly or indirectly. People lost their lives, people lost their, livelihoods. Incomes are, let's say, unpredicted, in terms of providing the basic needs for the family. People are currently dying, especially children, whom have like a huge short-term and long-term outcomes in terms of their cognitive development and the outcomes of those malnutrition effects. So I just want to state like a clear message, just stop the war and try the best possible, just to sit together as Sudanese and to hold on a one consensus, regarding.
Right, Doctor, we're going to have to wind up there. Hopefully they are listening. They need to stop the war. Thank you so much, Dr. Homeida.
Thank you so much, sister, for inviting me.
Dr. Anma Homeida is the Healthcare Programs Director with the Sudanese American Physicians Association. In a wide-ranging interview with VOA's Peter Claude, Egypt's Foreign Minister Sameh Hassan Shoukry discussed the recent coups in Africa and the ongoing conflict in Sudan, which is forcing tens of thousands of people to become refugees in Egypt and neighboring countries, including Chad.
Well, we have been applying our relationships to our Sudanese brethren, our contacts with all of the participants, whether in the military or in the civilian component, primarily in the military, to instill the importance of reaching a ceasefire in dealing with the humanitarian consequences of this conflict, and in moving towards a broader dialogue that can chart a roadmap for a future and lead to elections and a stable and a unified government for Sudan that preserves the interests of its people, it preserves its territorial integrity, and provides the traditional role of Sudan to play an active role within the context of its African association to Eastern Africa, to the African Union. We continue to do so. President Sisi initiated the summit of the neighbors of Sudan. We have met as foreign ministers in N'Djamena to formulate a roadmap that has been endorsed, and we met here on the margins of the GA to operationalize that roadmap after the heads of state have endorsed it. We have had several rounds in Cairo dialogue by the civilian component related to how best to deal with the conflict, how to deal with its consequences, and how to move beyond it. And we hope to expand that dialogue even wider. But at this time, a lot of concentration is to reach a ceasefire. And we do so in cooperation with our American and Saudi friends, with the IGAD, with the African Union.
The head of the Sudan National Army called on the international community to designate the RSF as a terrorist organization. If this is done, will this help the process to resolve the ongoing conflict and to bring peace, like you said Egypt is trying to rally around people to solve?
We are concentrating on ending the military confrontation and providing a format for political discussions between those concerned to reach an understanding that relieves the consequences and pressures on the Sudanese people. That is our main focus, in collaboration with the other formats that are involved in the issues related to Sudan. It's important also to maintain the structures of the institutions of governance, the legitimacy and the national state entities as the viable protector of the interests of the Sudanese people. I think we have seen the experience in our region of countries that have imploded and that have fragmented and do not have institutions of government that can represent the country and provide services to the people and to their citizens.
That was Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Hassan Shokri speaking with VOA's Peter Claudy. Now, for more on U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's visit to Africa, I'm joined live via Skype from Luanda, Angola, by VOA Pentagon correspondent Carla Barb. Hello, Carla. Give us the key takeaways from Secretary Austin's speech in Angola.
Good evening, Esther. There were a lot of key takeaways from the speech today, but the main point that he wanted to push during his speech was that Africa is important and Africa matters. The future of the entire globe is connected to the future of Africa. The Secretary spent a lot of time laying out the plan that the United States would bring to the country of Angola, particularly saying that they would be a partner and equal, and also trying to say that they wanted to build that military-to-military base. That's something that we already saw in Djibouti and during the discussions with Somalia in Djibouti and during the discussions with Kenya. We saw that laid out, how the U.S. has a strong partnership with those. But they want to build a partnership with Angola as well. And they said, they took a swipe at Russia and the Wagner Group during the speech. Secretary Austin said that the United States would never take our partnership for granted. Africa deserves better than outsiders trying to tighten their grip on this continent. And Africa deserves better than autocrats selling cheap guns, pushing mercenary forces like the Wagner Group, or depriving grain from hungry people all over the world. Of course, that is an allusion to Russia preventing grain from getting out of Ukraine and reaching different populations across the globe.
Carla, before I came to the studio, I looked at a text of the speech just before we got here. The Defense Secretary was especially critical about Russia's Wagner's presence on the continent. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Well, yes, he was very critical with Russia, taking that swipe at the Wagner Group, also saying that the United States wanted to look at them as equals, and he said other countries may see African countries as proxies, but we see them as partners. And then he even took swipes at peace, pointing out that there are unstable countries all around Angola, and that he said that the key is that militaries are supposed to serve the people, not the other way around. And I'll tell you one of the most personal moments of the entire speech was when he talked about his connection to Africa and how he said that democracy is something that works for the people, even though it's not perfect. As you know, there are people who were enslaved in Angola centuries ago and taken to the United States. And he told the audience, he says, I stand in front of you today. I am a child of the segregated South in the United States. And yet, I stand before you today as the first Black U.S. Secretary of Defense and the first Secretary of Defense to visit Angola. So he wanted to drive that point home. Perfect. He believes it is better than autocracy.
Carla, thank you very much for your reporting. A little wind there in Luanda. Carla Bab, VOA's Pentagon correspondent, reporting live for us from Luanda, Angola. The French ambassador to Niger left the African country early Wednesday, nearly 1 month after the military government ordered his expulsion, and just days after President Emmanuel Macron announced that the diplomat would be pulled out and French troops withdrawn. Relations between Niger and France, its former colonial ruler, have mostly collapsed. U.S. President Joe Biden has announced the first members of the President's Advisory Council on African Diaspora Engagement. The list includes actor Viola Davis, who will advise Washington on how to strengthen relations between African communities and the United States, promoting trade and investment, and building educational exchanges, among other issues, according to John Devamont, the National Security Council Senior Director for African Affairs. Now, still to come, we'll show you how a tech startup uses artificial intelligence to mask the accents of call center workers. We'll be right back.
This week on Straight Talk Africa, Niger has expelled the French ambassador and Paris says it is ending its military presence in the West African country. It's the latest example of anti-French sentiment sweeping parts of West Africa, where some countries have seen military coups. What is the future of France's influence and presence in West Africa? And is there a new balance of power emerging in the region? Join me, Haiti Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
In other news, the United States has for the time being stopped assistance to Gabon after the military seized control last month. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said, quote, the government is pausing certain foreign assistance programs benefiting the government of Gabon while we evaluate the unconstitutional intervention by members of the country's military. Burkina Faso's junta-led government has suspended French news outlet Jeune Afrique print and online operations in the country, accusing it of seeking to discredit the military. Since taking power in a coup in 2022, the junta has suspended multiple TV and radio stations and expelled foreign correspondents, especially from French media. And the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress, which represent hundreds of thousands of government workers across key sectors, have announced they will go on strike starting next week to demand pay raises and to protest the austerity measures of President Bola Tinubu's government. A California tech startup is using artificial intelligence to mask the accents of call center workers. The goal is to reduce the ill feelings workers encounter when taking calls from people who have trouble understanding them. Matt Debo has the story.
In the global economy, a call to a customer service center will likely be answered by someone in a faraway part of the world.
Just bear with me for a moment.
Call center workers can train for months to effectively communicate with customers whose native language and culture differ from theirs.
Okay, try that. Photographer. Photographer. Good.
Despite this training, accents often get in the way, says developer Sharath Narayana.
There are at least a few instances every single day of his life or her life that they go through some level of discrimination and sometimes straight up abuse.
Narayana is a co-founder of California-based Sanus AI, whose technology can adjust the way a speaker sounds, with the goal of making an accent more relatable. A call center worker from the Philippines demonstrated.
Hi, my name is Iggy. I'm from Parañaque. Hi, my name is Iggy. I'm from Parañaque.
The difference can be subtle, But Narayana says it is helping call center workers avoid abuse.
We're not trying to hide the fact that this person is from India or this person is from the Philippines, but this person would sound so clear, so confident, and so crisp that the other person would like to have a conversation.
Discrimination and abuse by callers are among the factors leading to high turnover among call center workers. Narayana himself once worked in such a center, and although he doesn't excuse the behavior of callers, he says he understands what's going on.
When they hear that accent, the first thing that I see is that lack of trust with this person. Hey, I've waited so long for my problem to solve. Now I'm connected to somebody that I can't relate to, or his voice that I cannot relate to. Can this person actually solve my problem?
Sociologist Anish says tools like Sanus can help reduce the burden on call center agents. Anish, however, worries that it also points to what he says are dehumanizing trends in technology, namely erasing diversity.
Most of our communication is mediated through some technology. But when technology starts changing your accent itself, that is transforming you into your own avatar. Now, the driving force is not developing an understanding between human beings, but the driving force is transactional in the sense that things have to get functionally done.
Narayana says that of the workers with the optional Sanus system installed, 97% of them are choosing to use it every day.
Because I was able to listen to one of my calls using Sanus, and wow.
It looks like English is my first language, where in fact it's not.
If there is a technology solution to it, where I don't have to change the way I sound, but the other person can understand me very, very clearly, why isn't it a beautiful thing?
For now, the AI seems to be helping people connect. Matt Dibble, VOA News, Palo Alto, California.
In today's technology report, let's meet a 19-year-old self-taught Zambian drone pilot who uses scrap materials to build drones and capture stunning aerial footage of his community. For more, tech reporter Paul Ndiho spoke to Lawrence Twaambo from the Zambian capital, Lusaka. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Esther. Thank you. Despite a skepticism from his friends, Lawrence's passion and creativity fueled his desire to use homemade drones for greater good. He aims to build and innovate, and he's hoping to get a commercial license one day. For more, I spoke to Lawrence Twaambo from the Zambian capital, Lusaka. Welcome to Africa 54.
Thanks. I'm glad to join you here.
Briefly tell us a little bit about yourself. You look so young. What are you working on?
I do electronics and code programming and projects built from local materials. Yeah, so I started this art of making electronic components from the time when I was 10 years old. Yeah, so what inspired me to do this is that when I was young, I loved to repair electronic stuffs, and that motivated me to start building my own.
Where do you get these materials from that you use to build different products?
With electronics, normally I get from local dead electronic appliances, but if I need more ones which are more complex, which can't be found here in our country, I normally order from China. And for the other stuffs, like for the shells, I normally use local materials like cardboard, wood, wires, and other rubber stuffs.
Who inspired you, or what inspired you to start building locally made planes from locally sourced products?
There are a lot of people who inspired me. Others are just from the pilots here in our local country, and also in the drone tech industry. One of the guys who inspires me is Unicha-san. He's the one who taught me to do more in those things since I had an inspiration over drones. So I met him and he tried to teach me one or two things about them. From the time when I was young, I've always dreamed to be a pilot. Yeah, so for that case, I thought of starting from small to big.
And how many of those locally made planes have you made?
So far, there are more than 5.
And they can fly?
Yes, and they can fly high.
You said one of your dreams is to become a pilot. And by you making your own planes, you are close to becoming a pilot? Do you have plans maybe to go to like a piloting school? Do you have plans maybe to study aeronautics?
Yes, exactly. Actually, my plan is to first do aeronautical engineering to design planes and to do more with planes in piloting industry.
You are 19 years old. Where do you get the money to buy some of these materials that you used to make these planes that fly?
Here in my country, I'm a drone operator. I offer drone services. So through those drone services, when I offer services to people, they pay me. I try to venture myself, the money into building my own self-built drones. Being that in drone industry and services, we use these drones which are made from other countries. So it inspires me to do more than that, whereby I'll build my own local-made drones and start using them for drone services like photography, surveillance, and mapping, and also wildlife tracking and many more drone services in operations.
When I was a bit younger like you, my dream was to one day also to fly planes. My father used to buy me like toy planes. I was the kid who always had these planes flying all over. So my dream was one day to maybe to aspire to become a pilot. But unfortunately, it never materialized. That's why I'm talking to a smarter guy like you.
Yes, exactly.
Are you a certified drone pilot?
I'm a certified drone pilot. I acquired my certified skills from Allison and online school from United States. That's where I acquired my drone certification in operations.
So you are based in Zambia, but you did an online class in the United States, and you are a certified drone pilot as we speak.
Yes, actually, yes.
You could actually make a career being a drone pilot, or you could make a career being an actual pilot who fly these jumbo jets, the Boeings. Where do you see yourself in maybe the next 20, 30 years?
I feel myself doing more and going higher in this industry. If given chance and opportunity and other support to endeavor more in this thing, I see myself going far and doing more better and contributing more in the aviation industry.
Thank you so much for your time, Lawrence.
All right, thank you, sir.
This is my kind of guy. That was Lawrence Twaambo, a self-taught drone pilot from Lusaka. That's today's Tech Report. Back to you, Esther.
Thanks, Paul. And that's our show for today. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Thank you for joining us.